Hi there, I'm Ahsan Ali Shaw, and you are watching me on YouTube and Facebook Live. Today, we are going to talk about it's actually the continuation of a topic that we discussed last week. What what is self-identity and and how our immunity system is our real self-identity. And to discuss this topic, and my guest is Edward Konowicz, and he has joined us from Virginia, United States. Hey, Ed.
Yeah, hi, Ollie. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing good. And when we say immunity and self identity, as we know, our immunity system is comprised of antigen and white blood cells. And we also know that this immunity attacks any non conforming cells as soon as they identify it. Now, this statement has got two very interesting elements. First, the attacking our immunity system is attacking the non-conforming cell. It could be viruses, bacteria, or anything, and it means our immunity system has a self-decisive mechanism going on within the system that it decides which cells to attack and which not to. And this is the first element. And second is there's some type of wireless connection within the immunity system. So how do you see it?
Well, I think we have to look at the actual structure and make
Mhm.
some obvious conclusions, which people do not like to do. They only like to repeat. Um, they only like to repeat what they hear from experts. They don't really want to think on their own because they've been led to believe that they can't think, that that it's not possible for them to come to a correct conclusion. But let me try to simplify, and we should put two links up.
Mhm.
Um, I don't see where I can put a link here, but the two
Yes, sir.
links I sent you, the one from Wikipedia and the
Yes,
other
yes.
one I think was from
Oh,
the
research
Wall
paper, right?
was from the NCBI, which is see if I can get it. It's an official publication, U.S.
Mm-hmm.
National Library of Medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very difficult to read because it's overloaded with
With technical words and so many medical words and medical jargons.
yeah, so most people can't understand it.
Even I
It's
read
re-
it, but I couldn't understand. I couldn't get a single word out of it.
no,
I,
so
I,
even
I
educated, I mean, you have a master's degree in business,
yes,
so you're
yes.
used to studying and looking up words,
Mm-hmm.
and even people who are highly educated
Mm-hmm.
in different fields cannot read the literature.
Yes. I-
And
and
right, people do not regurgitate, they don't draw conclusions, they just repeat. Well, I'm
yes.
going to try to educate everyone and give you a good summary of the articles. Then you can go back and read. It's true because there's so many extra details you can get
Are there?
lost. There's basically two parts to your immunity system, and your immunity system, which is called the immune system, but the immune system is not immune.
Mm-hmm.
It should be called the immunity system. Consists of your white blood cells, and there's basically two types. There's the T killer cells that kill by either eating, exploding, not exploding with explosives, but being able to dissolve the cell wall, and also cause cell necrosis by activating something in what is called cell membrane. And there's the B cells. So you got the T cells. The T cells are called killer T cells because they're more aggressive directly. And the B cells produce the antibodies. And the antibodies are like neutralizing agents, anti chemicals, antitoxins that protect you. Okay, so those are the two parts,
Mhm.
basically. Your T cells, which directly kill foreign cells and bacteria, and your B cells that produce antibodies that contain, isolate, damage, and kill toxins, bacteria, viruses. And the basis of this, what cell do I impede, is based on your antigens, which identify self and non self. If you read the literature will say self and non self. And
Mhm.
one of the functions of the thymus, which is over the heart, is to get rid of the T cells that attack its own body, which is you can have an overreactive autoimmune response like in an allergy, which is it's the autoimmune response that's killing you. So the thymus tries to get rid of those cells that are reactive to a person's own body. And the thymus tries to produce the cells that are reactive to foreign invading cells or toxins. Is that understandable?
Yes.
Now, the T cells generally activate the B cells. About 10% of the B cells or so, according to the literature, are independent of the T cells. You have a certain amount of white blood cells that come with you at birth. You get them from your mother and other things. And we're going to talk about the functions of the cells. As I said, a certain amount of them are innate. Most of them are managed by T cells, and they're called T cells because they're so-called educated or trained or filtered in the thymus, which is an organ under the heart, over the heart. If the thymus is not present, most people will die after birth, soon afterward, from infections. The thymus is a critical part of the immunity system where the B cells are more independent. The beginnings of the white blood cells, like for your red blood cell and your platelets, are produced in your bone marrow. So your bone marrow produces the basis of your immunity system. The thymus trains it. So let me repeat,
Mhm.
because it's hard to learn all this stuff. Impossible from the article, wasn't it?
Yes, it was impossible. I read it, I couldn't understand a single word out of it. There were so many technical details and so many jargons, medicals,
Yeah,
so
that's
it was
intentional.
impossible.
It's
Yeah.
it's written in a way that is not summarized. I don't know whether the people lack the capability or
Mhm.
that's just a characteristic of advanced biology and medicine to
Mhm.
write it with so many terms that not only the average person, but even the educated person cannot read and understand the literature. And let me just look at some of the comments.
Mhm. It's
Yeah,
hey,
okay.
hey,
People saying
Elaine,
hi.
yeah, hey, Melissa, hey, Adam, and other people. Thank you for joining us.
So your blood cells are produced in your bone marrow. Okay. The white blood cells, and there's two types. There's your B for antibody and your T cells for thymus. The thymus is a small organ, almost like the spleen, and the spleen contains blood cells. The thymus contains it, but it's over the heart, right on top of the heart. In fact, in some heart surgeries, unfortunately, and I don't know the choices involved, the thymus is removed, which puts the person in a lot of danger. You need your thymus, but the older you get, the less your thymus is used. So we got two types of white blood cells, which are largely the basis of your immunity system. The B cells, which produce the antibodies that attack invaders, and the T cells, which are educated in the thymus over the heart, that produce the managers. These are T killer cells that can actually, like an amoeba, eat foreign bacteria and digest them. They can also put a hole in a cell so it dies. And they can also activate cell necrosis where the cell actually dies. And the thymus filters. You saw cortex and medulla. The cortex is the outside layer, the medulla is the inside layer. They're just trying to throw a lot of words at you.
Mhm.
But basically, they both have this function of trying to separate the T cells into those that are overreactive, that would attack the body itself, and those that you need that will attack invaders, such as infections or cancer. And this isn't discussed much.
Mhm.
Cancer is a failure of the immunity system. We all have cancerous cells. We get them even in our skin from the sun, and our immunity system identifies the cancerous cells and kills them. And usually there's a cytokine storm, which the cytokine storm is an inflammation. The T cells help produce an inflammation so the white blood cells can find the cancer cells or the invaders. So inflammation is part of the response, but inflammation can be over responsive and kill your own body. And inflammation helps the white blood cells find the invader or the cancerous cell and kill it. So, cancer and most disease is a failure of immunity system, but each animal has a different immunity system. And there's some interesting facts and conclusions I want to draw.
Mhm.
Now, remember, cancer is a failure immunity system. We all get mutated cells from what's called ionizing radiation, which can break up a molecule and cause it to mutate or change. We get these cancerous cells all over our body, but as long as your immunity system is healthy, it gets rid of the cancerous cells. What educates the white blood cells to do this is your thymus, which learns to identify you, and it's over your heart. And there's an interesting fact that no one mentions but me. The thymus, the immunity system, is over the heart, and the heart is the last organ to get cancer. You get cancer of the brain, cancer of the lungs, cancer of the uterus, ovaries, cancer of the testicles, cancer in the skin, cancer of the bones. But how many people have you heard ever get cancer of the heart?
God, we discussed it last week.
You
You
don't
don't
get
get.
cancer of the heart because the heart is the heart of you. It's the heart of your identity, and it communicates apparently, this is my conjecture, with the thymus. So I think a large part of communication, there's three types of communication in the body. There's the electrical system, which is the nervous system, but even at the end of the electrical system, the second form of communication dominates, which is chemical communications. Trees communicate mainly chemically. We use an electrical system to control the chemical communication. So, in between your nerves is a synapse, which is a space in between your nerves. And what crosses that space is chemicals that are activated by your nervous system. So, and it's the ratio of those they're called neurotransmitters. But I think there's wireless communication. I mean, chemical communication is wireless. And there's an interesting wireless communication we do that dogs do. It's smell. We can smell people who are compatible with us. People who are not compatible to us stink.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of interesting. We'll go into
Uh,
memory cells. The memory
mhm.
cells are white blood cells that remember the specific antibody to attack a disease. So you might have a few of them. You had a disease 10 years ago, you get the infection again. And these are memory B cells that remember how to reproduce the antibody, which is emitted into the bloodstream and then magically somehow finds the disease to attach to the disease. I want to talk about that complex a little bit later. But don't confuse your actual memory, which is related to your nervous system, with the memory in B cells, because the memory in the B white cell is based on the memory of the antibody needed to fight a specific infection.
And
And
I
you have
was
two
reading.
types of antibodies. You got general ones that you were born with, and you have specific ones that are created when you get infected. And the general antibodies take care of most infections. And you're born with a lot of them. And when you nurse, because you're not yet producing antibodies, your thymus and your heart are not fully mature, you get antibodies from your mother's milk. So when you're nursing, when a baby nurses, it gets a large part of its immunity system from the mother's milk by nursing. Okay. That's a lot of stuff
It is,
already, isn't that?
yeah, it is so much to digest, so many technical details.
And I didn't even use fancy words.
Yes, I think it is because we are not accustomed to understand the technical details of so many things. That's why I think.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
what conclusion do you draw from the literature?
well, the literature, if you read it,
Mm,
it does teach you one thing.
mm,
It's so complex, most people can't understand it, even biologists.
mhm,
What does that mean?
mm,
It means these little cells, and I'll quote Howard Tiemann, who won the Nobel Prize in immunology. He said these little cells are operating at the level of complexity of the nervous system. You know how we learn language and at least
mm,
10,000 words and math and different skills like plumbing or carpentry or farming
mm,
and interacting. Well, these little cells
mm.
are carrying on processes as complicated and as sophisticated as our intelligence. And it makes no
Yes.
sense. How is one
Mhm,
cell making decisions at the level of the nervous system?
mm. It's just
And
like
I'm going to try to prove or demonstrate how that one cell is making such complicated decisions is because it is connected to the nervous system. It is
just
part of the
like
nervous system.
another example of it, that just like example of one cell of sperm, it contains your history, your color, your skin, your behavior, and how it contains so much information just in one tiny cell, and it defines a person's life.
Well, part of it is communication.
Mm,
And besides DNA being a pattern for protein and enzyme synthesis, DNA also acts as a little laser. It actually can generate a frequency. And cells in an organ actually tune to the frequency that is being generated by the cells in that organ. And that's some of the more sophisticated science you're not going to hear on TV, that DNA can lase. It's an inductor. An inductor can radiate. It's the most basic antenna, the coil, the double helix coil of the DNA, behaves as an antenna besides its other functions. And it can radiate certain frequencies. And of course, interference in those, like by carcinogenic, which is a cancer causing compound, can alter those frequencies and cause cancer. Now, your immunity system is supposed to come in, tag that toxin with an antibody, and kill the cells that have become cancerous. But your immunity system is your self identity. And there's some interesting things. You need diversity in your immunity system, otherwise, you would be allergic to everything. Your immunity system has to determine what bacteria are acceptable, which ones are
and
not.
whatnot.
We're all coated with bacteria, our skin, our throat, our stomach, our intestines. We have tons of bacteria, and our immunity system determines which bacterial culture, and it's culture, which bacteria culture is symbiotic or cooperative or compatible with us.
And as I said earlier in the beginning, that it seems like they there is a self-decisive mechanism going on within the immunity system that decide it is working all the time, 24 hours there, and every second, that which cells to attack and which not. It is so quick and complicated that anything happens, just an instant it decides. Even
Yeah.
we are not conscious that it is working.
It is constantly working, and you
Yes,
have to remember momentum.
yes. It seems like
Consciousness can have a momentum, and if it's in a physical form, it's repeating. It's repeating the momentum, just like we go back to our memories, and our memories can repeat. So, and that's what happens with the B cells. You might have two or three that memorize the antibody, which they have encoded in their DNA in chromosome 6, supposedly. They have encoded the directions for creating an antibody that neutralizes some toxic bacteria or toxin. But there's a couple issues here. So we have two types of white blood cells that are your immunity system. They're not immune. They got your T cells that are educated in the thymus by the heart. So even when the thymus degenerates as you get older, the function of the heart is continuing, and the heart is letting you decide who you are and who you love. So your heart is deciding what is compatible with you.
and the
And
T
people
cells
who
are the
are
aggressive ones.
right
The
now,
T cells are
dogs do this. How do you decide if a person's chemically compatible with you? It's their smell, which is, we even say it, if someone is in large disagreement with us or did something wrong, we say they stink. Yes, they stink to us. And when
yeah.
we have a lover, and this is not uncommon, because I went through this, your lover or your wife may smell like perfume to you. They may not smell like perfume to themselves. They may
But
not smell like perfume to other people, but your
but to you,
lover smells good to you because you have become chemically compatible through your immunity system. And that's what dogs are checking. They're smelling and asking, are you chemically compatible with them? And people say that dogs can smell, just like sharks, they can smell fear. If you're fearful, you're not compatible, right? You're
yes.
afraid of someone, you're not compatible. And dogs and sharks and animals can smell that. So we're dealing with wireless communication. A large part of it is chemical, and what circulates the chemicals? The heart.
mm,
The heart circulates the messages from different parts of your body, but the heart is also developing what is self and non self, which is who do you recognize as people you love. And so when you're a member of a herd, particularly a large herd, your immunity system is spread. It accepts more. They did studies on this. When
mm.
animals go extinct, it's harder for them to reproduce. Why it's harder for them, their immunity
Immunity
system
system.
rejects
Yes.
more. And
So,
it's been found, particularly women, guys that have a different genetic structure from them smell better, which is our immunity system needs diversity because without enough diversity, it will attack itself. It will overreact. So people who are different from us may smell good to us, particularly women, because of the need for genetic diversity because of mutations and other issues, birth defects that may come from recessive genes.
I also read a research a while ago that whenever potential mates they come across, that your your body releases some type of uh, chemicals and the other person receives it. If he is a potential and there's a mutual feelings, then both partners they would receive and they would convey and receive the chemical signal. So it means they are potentially
Yeah, most of
capable
communication among biology is chemical,
chemical.
even in the human body. And we use different neurotransmitters to create different moods. Moods are really important because it affects how your body communicates with itself. So, one of the ways to destroy the health of a person is to create a mood of fear, anxiety, stress. And everyone says that, even doctors.
Hmm.
Stress damages you because it's creating the wrong mood. The wrong chemicals are being transported in your body. So it's very difficult. We have to look at the current tyranny and contradictions and police state tactics and not react with fear, but with caution, not react with disgust, but condemnation. So it's important to develop the right mood in order to reduce stress. And that's related to your immunity system. You don't want an overreactive immunity system because you will attack yourself. I try to point this
Hmm.
out in many of my videos that people are in contradiction. They'll go criticize tyranny and support another tyranny. They'll criticize what we call psyop today, and yet they were controlled by a psyop when they grew up, and they just repeat another psyop. So they figured out the politics is giving them incorrect information, and then they retreat to religious propaganda and repeat that. So their immunity system is really damaged. They can't integrate. And I said, I'm the only one pointing this out. Your immunity system is related to your nervous system or how you identify yourself and identify yourself with other people. And the people who support these larger group identities, like the political propaganda or religious propaganda, they're less likely to fall into an overreaction, which is an autoimmune reaction. They're more likely to fall effect to an infection or cancer because they have accepted too much. They have accepted too many contradictions, things that are not truly compatible with their lives. So the white
That,
blood cells are basically doing the job of our nervous system. They're identifying what's compatible with our thinking and lifestyle and what is not.
so there's a question here. Do you see a link between the external ideas and ideology and beliefs with the immunity system? because
Yes.
I see a link. It is because of fear or happiness, and it changes the mood and changes the chemicals reaction within your body and your immunity system. It gets better or lower
Like
out of
one
it.
thing we learned from computers have a central processor, a CPU. But you can store memory on an external hard drive. You can store it on the cloud, on the internet. You can store it on a USB drive. You can store it locally in RAM. There's many places you store memory. And it's the same thing with your body. Your body just does not store information in your brain.
Mhm.
And that's
It,
why people can have a lot of brain damage, brain operation, and still regain their language and memories. They have to go looking for it because they have secondary storage of your memory. And a large part of your memory storage long term, I think, occurs in your bones. So your blood cells, your white blood cells, your immunity system comes from your bones, which is
mhm.
your memory of what your family is, of what you like, of what you think. Your memory
It is-
affects your immunity system.
and it is stored
We,
in different parts of the body.
right, in different parts of the body. We've been taught this primitive 18th century concept that the brain stores all its
Yeah.
information in itself, that the brain is self-contained organ, even though now we see the immunity system is spread throughout our body from our bones to our intestines. The bursa B cells were named after bursa cells from the bursa in the intestines because how we digest, how we incorporate what foods are compatible with us affects our immunity system. So what we eat affects our immunity system. And people have been laughed at because we're only supposed to see a system in one location. We're not supposed to see it communicating wirelessly, usually through chemicals throughout our body.
Mhm.
But our body has nerves throughout it. The nerves aren't only in the brain, there's nerves in the bones. Break your bones, see how much it hurts. And those and we're saying, even though you got nerves in the bone, nerves in your toe, the only place the nerves store information is up here. No,
Mhm.
those nerves go to all parts of your body.
Mhm.
Now you have to
There's a,
use reason to get there because you can't find it in the literature. The literature is censored. And people are finally figuring out that they're getting lies from the experts, like only unvaccinated people are getting COVID. It's a lie.
and
Vaccinated people are getting COVID, are transmitting disease. The vaccine does not work as a vaccine. It doesn't work. And the
yes.
people in power don't want to admit the vaccine does not work. So they lie. And their experts lie, like their experts lied about smoking. They lied about asbestos. They lied about lead in paint. They lied about lead in the water system. They don't care. Did
Mhm.
they care kids were dying and their brains were being damaged in Flint, Michigan from lead in the water? They don't care. These are criminals in power. And they control the science. So you don't understand the immunity system is based on your self and group identity. Your immunity system is being manipulated by the television
Mhm.
through your nervous system. Your immunity system is being manipulated by the politicians, by what group you're supposed to be seen as. People who are objecting to the propaganda are supposed to be seen as terrorists today. If I object to the lies of science on television and told by these leaders, obvious lies, obvious
Mhm.
no comprehension, including their doctors and experts are lying to people. And if I reject that, I'm supposed to be seen as a terrorist. They're messing with our immunity system.
With their propaganda machines, with their
But your
news and
propaganda machine is affecting your identity.
yeah.
The
It is
stereotypes are
a
affecting your identity, thus, they're interfering with your immunity system, and your heart is training your white blood cells, the T cells, to identify self and non self, friend or foe. And I think that's overload for most people.
yes,
We could go
and
deeper in it,
uh,
but
yeah,
all we would get if we interviewed an expert, they would just say, I'm full of crap. An expert would just lie, try to throw as many degrees and fancy terms at me. And you can look it up, and it's hard. I sent you the
well,
links. The
I read it, and
literature,
it was the literature was impossible to comprehend.
there's only a few scholars like me that can read it.
Mhm.
That's outside the field. Now, if you're in the field, you can read it, but then you dare not tell the truth because you'll be fired.
Yes,
You have to learn to lie. You got to get your lie sense, your sense of lying to be an expert. And there's only a few scholars that can go into another field and actually read the literature, particularly in medicine, because the terms obfuscate. That's a good term. They obfuscate the meaning. And if you look and read, you'll find that I educated you. Two types of cells: B cells that produce
and peace.
antibodies that remember it, and T cells, which are educated by the thymus in the heart, a non self and self, and tries to get rid of the thymus, the overreactive, to self. And definition of self comes from family group because people we feel close to smell okay with us.
Mhm.
People who are in disagreement with us, we say they stink because we're
Yes,
dealing in chemical messages. And the system is hiding that truth. And when you get
so
a drug, when you get a toxin, it's messing with the chemical messages in your body. And your immunity system, through the antibodies and T cells, the T cells are generally the managers. They say, this drug is toxic. We want to tag it as toxic so we don't let it into the cell membrane. And the
how
nervous
did
cells are throughout your body, they're just not in your brain. You got nerve cells in every part of your body, not just your brain. So memory's all over the place. And memory is a large part of your self identity, how you look at someone as friend or foe, self or non self. I think I summarized that pretty good.
yes, and thank you guys, thank you Alien, thank you Melissa, thank you. Melissa has spoken, and she is making tortilla omelet or something, and many other people. She just shared a comment here, and thank you Adam, thank you Alien, and other
Every
people for joining us. Thank you Riz, Scully,
yeah, just
and
most people
Riley.
listen to this 2 or 3 times, replay the video, and then go to Wikipedia or then go to a journal and read so
Yes.
you have some basis of understanding and know when you're reading the author is intentionally obfuscating, whether it's malicious or he's just trying to stay within his field or her field, doesn't matter. There's too much obfuscation and not enough summary so that people can't understand what the researcher is talking about. And that's wrong. You write a paper to communicate. You don't write a paper so no one understands it.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's today's the literature is all about. So no one could understand it.
well, let me address the question. Adam asked,
Mhm.
does fluoride compromise your immunity system? And I should cover this. We got about 10 minutes.
Yeah, we can
Okay, the
do
way the
it for
immunity
10 minutes.
system works is you have a self identity molecule, very long, called the antigen on the surface of all bacteria cells. And your T cells, particularly, recognize or discriminate against that antigen. It's like a driver's license. All cells have a driver's license, including bacteria. It's called an antigen, their driver's license. Your T cells, like a cop on patrol, he's a policeman. He stops the bacteria or cell and reads the driver's license, which is the antigen. And reading this is very complicated because they got to read whether it's friendly or foe. They got to look them up
Mhm.
on the records. Is this car stolen? Is this cell stolen? Is this a criminal? Is there a warrant for this? And this is so complicated. It can't be done by one cell alone, but one cell is doing it. It interrogates the bacteria or the toxin by the antigen. These are generally lipoproteins. There's one thing, I think it's called an epitope. There's one section of the antigen that is the actual driver's license, the picture, the name, and the driver's license number. The rest of it is other information, like registration, car insurance. But these are long molecules. These are like long documentation. Fluoride is an acid. You have to look up a Lewis base and acid. Lewis was a genius who got, I believe, a Nobel Prize in chemistry. He recognized that what an acid was something that stole an electron. It grabs an electron. He said it grabs two, and it's not true. It can grab one electron. Electrons prefer to be in pairs. Fluoride is the strongest halogen, strongest elemental acid. So what that means, it takes an electron, the one most available, which is the outer electron from a big molecule. So fluoride damages long molecules. It acts as an acid and breaks up long molecules. Your immunity system needs these long molecules that have the intelligence to identify the antigen or the driver's license and draw a conclusion, friend or foe. Now, do they have a warrant on them or don't they? Is it a stolen car or is it car registered correctly? So the white blood cell has these HL histo linked, or I forget, ligates or something. One of these fancy terms. It has one of these long molecules that help them identify the antigen. Fluoride damages all long molecules. Fluoride behaves as an acid, fully damaging to the bones, to everything, because it removes the outer electron, which helps hold the long molecule together. Let me repeat this.
Mhm.
Any process, bones, immunity system, nervous system, that uses long molecules, the long molecule is held together somewhat by the outer orbit electron. Fluoride acts as an acid, a Lewis acid. It grabs the electron away from the long molecule to complete itself because it has an odd number of electrons and it wants an even number of electrons to complete itself. So fluoride acts as an acid and as a toxin or a poison to all long molecules in your body because of its ability to steal the outer electron. And no one's going to explain that to you.
Mhm.
Only a few scholars can explain it. A lot of people understand it, but they're bound, and we see that like these experts on TV. They tell any truth, they're fired. To be educated today and tell people correct information, you're targeted, you're fired, you're discredited, you're seen as a hoax, as an egomaniac, as a terrorist, because you're explaining things.
Whistleblower.
And people don't want things explained to them. They
Mhm.
want to repeat.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that today's literature is also all about repeating. And thank you, Adam. I think, Adam, you have explained Adam's question. And thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Melissa, Elaine, many other people, Riley, for joining us. And if you have any question, just leave it in the comment box below, tag Ed, and he would answer it to you
Well,
as soon as he can. And
post, that was thunder. Post on my
yeah,
Facebook page. I can't comment on YouTube
mm,
or the what's this live stream or
no,
yard, what is it?
yeah, I'll tag you with the live
StreamYard.
stream.
Yeah, StreamYard. So
You're
so
welcome.
um I have it listed on my Facebook page. I can address any comments. And the important thing is you people now need to respect people who can study, scholars.
Yeah,
You couldn't be able to get this information except through scholarship. And
yeah.
those in power are trying to control the information and stop scholarship and discredit anyone who disagrees with these propagandists.
Thank you guys, and thank you, Ed. And
Okay.
we'll see you next week.
Okay.